Another election cycle. Here we are. About to say some things that I've said before for years, multiple different videos, but you got to update your resume. I guess you got to do videos kind of reiterating the point, putting things in a perspective. First and foremost, what I'm about to say is not exclusive to black people or black communities. And I'm not even treating everything as if it's just, even among black people, like it's the same. So I want to try to be at least somewhat precise with what it is that I'm saying. But I believe black, white, what have you, advocates of social justice conned an entire generation of black folks. Now, that's not to say that every black person adopts this. Obviously, I don't. Once did, though. But they conned them by having them emphasize social ills and social nonsense over economic freedom, property rights. Now, you may say one can do both, and you can, but what I'm talking about is the prioritizing. And this is in a lot of, when it comes to black leaders or people that claim to be advocates of I don't know, black rights, if you consider that to be a thing. But you get these groups of black folks who are so loud and proud for some sort of form of what they deem as social justice or something of that nature. And they gravitate towards, unfortunately, when it comes to the political side of things, folks that want to then expand government, state control, and so forth. And those guys generally campaign, whether they do it or not, it's a completely different story, but those guys generally campaign on helping black folks and solving those social ills and those social problems. Now, my argument has been the same for a while now, and that is the reason why the economic freedom and the property rights matter more than that, because it essentially negates those social ills. I always talk about how it's one thing to dislike me for being black, as silly as I may find it. It's another thing to want to use an aggression upon me because I'm black. Those are two completely different things. But we've reached to this level of, okay, everybody wants to be offended. Everybody wants to, be a victim. So this is why you have these narratives such as, remember, like the Oscar so white thing. And all that thing is basically a bunch of folks. And no, let me backtrack. I'm going to put it to you as blunt as I possibly can because I don't want to have this video be too long. What that movement and other movements are like it, what they do is they're centered around you begging to be accepted by white people. I got to give it to you straight, guys. Y'all going to be like, oh, man, he's going full hotel. It's just, I've been saying the same thing for the longest. This is real talk. You guys are going out there begging to be accepted by white folks because you feel like, whether you know it or not, you feel as if what they do, and more so what they have control over, is the legitimate thing. Now, I'm going award shows or awards centered around acting or entertainment or so forth, music and so forth. There are black equivalents, dare I say, to those that praise and award black folks. Those aren't enough of them. The ones that they see as legitimate are the Oscars. And by for black folks, I'm talking like, you got for music, so I don't know, BET Awards, Soul Train Awards, and stuff like that have been geared to more so thank the contributions of folks that are black in in entertainment, black and in entertainment. Why was that so difficult to say? But ultimately boils down to them wanting to be accepted by white folks. Now, I know it sounds like, well, is that really the case? Because these guys act as if they're so proud. But they demonize the economics of it all. They demonize the property rights of it all because they've been conned to believe that. If you have the economic freedom to be able to do what it is that you want to, doesn't mean that you are going to be rich. Doesn't mean that you're always going to be successful. I believe that is going to be the setup in which people that put in work can be most financially successful and build some sort of generational wealth in that regards. by being economically free to do so. And by that, I'm meaning other individuals, states, and so forth, not impeding on their right to do that, getting in the way through fines, licensing, and so forth, regulation, and all of that. If people had the freedom, black folks had, and it focused on, emphasized on that, what these white folks feel about them will be completely irrelevant. It can be completely irrelevant. But notice, the conversation is unfortunately leading with this idea of you got to accept me, begging to be accepted by, begging to be included in white folks or what they deem as white folks' affairs, while also begging for the resources of the white folks. And that's like, doesn't sound self-sufficient to me at all. But again, when you get to put the economics and you get to put the property rights on the back burner, that's what happens. This is where we're at. This is why everybody campaigns. I'm going to do this. I'm going to give black folks money to the hey, your colleges. I'm going to do all of this. I'm going to do all of this for you guys. And it's centered around, and all of these awards and even businesses adopt these silly ideas where they're like, hey, look at us. Look at the black folks that we have a part of us. You know what I mean? We're trying to rid the world of the social ills, right? Because of equality and representation and all of this other silly stuff, which doesn't even matter. Doesn't have anything to do with merit. But they have conned, I believe, and it's not just white leftists, it's black leftists as well, con generation into belief, not even that, really demonizing wealth, demonizing money, demonizing economic freedom, demonizing property rights, and not understanding what that actually means. Again, I always talk about property rights doesn't necessarily mean doing something for profit or anything like that, or capitalism is necessarily doing something for profit. Profit is just the side effect of some certain affairs. When we talk about money being the most common commodity and people not wanting to operate on a strict barter system. But whether you want to give your money away for free, help somebody out, sell it, all of that's under capitalism, right? It's just private ownership of goods and services and free and voluntary exchange of those private goods and services. Emphasizing that and trying to, let's say, get the government out of the way or these institutions that are out of the way of people's, that are more so impeding on people's economic freedom would then negate the social ill. Because even, let's say, if, this is why I don't emphasize that, right? Even if white folk felt some kind of way about me for being black, I don't care. I really don't. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not trying to convince you to accept me for being black. Go screw yourself. I don't care. And it's funny because you get these like weirdo leftists do like, oh man, he's caping for white folks. Never once. You can't even find now video of me ever begging to be accepted by black people. Though most of these black leaders, their whole entire existence, being accepted by white people. You've never seen me go around being really asking to be accepted by anybody. So I did have it correct. But in this context, you've never seen me go around asking to be accepted by white people. Never have you seen me do that. Never, ever, ever, ever have you seen me going around asking to be accepted. I don't care. You think some kind of way about me, that's your business. Just don't get in my way. You know what I'm saying? And by getting in my way, don't use aggression. You got to use aggression upon when we got problems. But those are two different things. But when you emphasize economic freedom, you don't stress yourself out about that. You don't stress, and it's not whatever, white folk, Asian folk, doesn't matter. I know, y'all know how much I hate the whole concept of black and brown. They try to pit everybody against white folks as if all the, like, let's say the races that are with like other black or more so brown races, like they don't feel some kind of way about black folks, and display some sort of racism amongst them towards, and vice versa. You know what I mean? Talked about how, I grew up in Dallas and we used to have these Mexican versus black fights like in high school. It's kind of crazy. That used to happen for no reason. But you get what I'm saying, man. Emphasizing the property rights over the social ill, because I don't care about that. I don't care about being accepted by you because I'm not trying to legitimize I don't need you to legitimize mine. But I would then be legitimizing the things that you control as whatever. If I'm sitting here going around begging to be accepted or feeling as if what you control is the legitimate thing. And it's not. But they absolutely will be used to control, be it politically or socially. They'll use that whole fact that you emphasize that, you hyper emphasize that. they will use that to then control you because they run definitely on campaigns and using the state to then control people to then accept you. Or to more so they will correct, even if they can't correct the problem, they'll campaign acting as if they can sort of solve the issue. Even no matter how much the issue is out of their control, it doesn't stop them from wielding the power of the state or getting control of some sort of power by way of the state and running on this aspect of I'm helping you. Politicians going around begging or like this is, hey, I'm here to help. Look at me, I'm here to help is the one you need to be staying away from. Help yourself. Help yourself. Or you can help other people. Just do it voluntarily without the state. But just sit back and think. If you're like, where is he going? Like, what is he talking about? Just pay attention to some of these activists, that claim to be advocates for social justice. It's nearly always exclusively, nearly, so it's not exclusively, but it's close. It's centered around them begging to be accepted by white people, or begging for resources that they feel white people control, because their own resources aren't legitimate. So they feel like, I gotta get some of what they got. So while they focus so much on diversity and representation, they see some field or something or industry, and they're so hyper-emphasized on the percentage base of the consensus of that particular industry or job or something like that. And they're, this has an X amount of percentage of black people. Well, that's a problem. And then they're like, we need to have some sort of laws that then pick me, you know what I mean? And then I could be a part of your industry. Like, dude, they've conned you guys, though, because they have used, you got nothing out of it. I talk about how using Democrats as an example, and how they have somehow convinced these cities and such that they've been running for multiple decades. Like Baltimore, for an example, which it's like, remember when the Freddie Gray thing popped off? No matter how you feel about the situation, everybody was looking to like, they would blame a white man and stuff like that. And I'm sitting here like, that's impressive. There's a black mayor, black chief of police. Your councilmen and women are almost exclusively, black, or Democrat. And it's like that with a lot of other cities where they've been running them bad boys into the ground and somehow have gotten away with blaming other people. That's impressive. That's very impressive. But that's because, hey, they know they got your support. But that's the thing that gets me, man. And it almost pains me to see some of these, let's say, entertainers that go buck dance for these politicians and stuff, and they go sell you these dreams, or these people, or this person for president is gonna help me out. And I'm sitting there like, dude, y'all are waiting for politicians, leaders to move your world for you. And because you're doing that, you are going to be waiting forever. You've been waiting forever for them to move your world. You act like your world can't move unless they move it for you. It's a dangerous thing. My honest assessment and the argument that I make is emphasize and more so hold dear the concept of economics, or what economics is, as a human action, not as numbers, crunching numbers, like as a human action, and property rights and the importance of it. And then you can start to see, okay, well, these groups of people or this person is having difficulty because, well, the state makes it nearly impossible for them to be entrepreneurs. Costs all of this money to get licensing and all of this sort of stuff. And then they make it all these regulatory agencies that really benefit these people that are already at the top, that are already massive. And again, demon rats are going around blaming free marketers and stuff. And it's like so crazy to me because none of these guys that are part of these big businesses, for the most part, they're not advocating to get rid of government. That's funny. Like, libertarianism leads to monopolies, or all these big businesses will love that. Well, why don't they support libertarianism? because they don't. I'm not saying go support a libertarian party. I'm saying they don't support the concept of libertarianism. They support for almost exclusively Democrats, and the ones that don't, might support a Republican or two. This is what I'm just giving you what it is. So it doesn't even make sense because they're not free marketers, and they ultimately realize these laws, certainly in the workplace or workforce, you know what I mean? These regulatory laws, they benefit off of the most because the smaller companies cannot afford to survive on following those rules and inflating their costs because of that artificially. Big businesses, Walmart and them, they can do that. You jack your minimum wage up, double your minimum wage. They can handle that. Mom and pop can't. But you see that, and it's obvious. And even some of these outlaws you guys are advocating. It's kind of weird. Minimum wage. All have racist origins. You talk about the Bacon-Davis Act. You talk about what these laws have been historically utilized for, not just in America, but in other countries, Australia, South Africa, where they use minimum wage laws to price black folk out of the markets. In America's case, price black minorities, women, and young folk out of the market. That was what they wanted those laws to exist for. So people wouldn't hire other workers. I don't want to talk about that, though. I don't want to talk about the origins of some of the laws, the regulations that you advocate. Because, again, you've been conned by these same groups of people that go around saying, well, these laws exist to help you out. All right. Black folks that live and it's not just black folks, people that live in these rotten areas ain't gonna learn nothing from these public schools, rotten public schools, but they can't learn something from working. They'll learn more from that and having a job than they will in that crappy public school that they in. But then you say that they got to be of a certain age and get hired for a certain price. And by certain, and more so the price. You know what I mean? It's less about the age and more about the price. Because, working at 15 and stuff like, I don't know. I know I did. Like, I don't think you could do that anymore. I think you have to be like 16 in most places to be able to to be hired to sack groceries, or mop floors at the grocery store or something like that. But I learned more from working at Kroger's than I ever did in the freaking public schools. That's for sure. Also went a long way. But nonetheless, and nobody's going to ever admit it, economics and centered around the economics, centered around property rights. That's way more important to emphasize than whatever social ill that you don't like me because I'm black or you don't want to acknowledge me in your human affair. Like, I don't give a rat's butt about any of that. I don't. I simply do not care about I don't care, bro. Like, so what? You feel some kind of way. So what? That does not invalidate my position. That does not invalidate what it is that I do because I'm not seeking your acceptance. But you get these blackity black, y'all, right? And their whole entire existence is centered around begging to be accepted by white folk and begging to be included in white folks' affairs. Should have been listening to Malcolm. He tried to tell y'all. These geniuses, right? What did Malcolm say? Brother Malcolm say? He said these Negro leaders, right? These geniuses, such geniuses, right? They get out there and get these laws passed, civil rights and all of that, but they can't teach you how to utilize your own wealth. You got all this buying power in all these industries that you should be in control of, hip hop such as $1 billion industries. And somehow these black leaders always inch towards utilizing the state and trying to use that to fix you guys' lives. Meanwhile, the problems still persist. So they can't teach you how to be economically self-sufficient, dependent on yourself instead of being dependent on other people. But they sure enough can, Mr. White Man, please accept me. Please give me this position. Give me a role in this movie. Pass this law so these industries have to hire me. And then they have nerve to say that I'm the one that hate myself for being black. And therefore, I'm not the one going around begging to be accepted by these white folks. That's what y'all do.